Hi, my name is Troy Pasulka. I'm pausing my work on two things just to make a brief video about this Steven Crowder and wife interaction. Having gone through the experiences that I've gone through, I can see many things in that video that other people can't. And I think it's important to learn about these things so that people's lives don't get ruined and unjustifiably, so that relationships can have better trajectories, etc. The two things I'm working on, I won't go into them in a lot of detail. There's so many details to get into, but basically my ex, who is the mother of my first daughter, who's now like 5 years old, abducted my daughter about 2 years ago. I haven't seen her since, essentially, and even though I disproved the abuse litigation she brought against me with videos, texts, all kinds of things. So one thing I'm working on is my abuse litigation against her, because I actually have evidence against her that she was abusive, and which is part of the abuse was constantly abducting my child, which is the only reason I stayed with her, and I refused to have more kids with her because she kept abusing me and our child. So, but yet she kept asking me to have more children, and it's all documented. So anyway, I'm taking a break on that litigation, completing the writing of that. I also have an appeal because even though I won the abuse litigation, I was supposed to get attorney's fees. My attorney's fees paid $50,000, $60,000, whatever it was. And the judge, just like he ignored the law to give custody to the documented physical abuser, also ignored the real basic law that says just whoever wins the litigation essentially is entitled to it. They get their attorney's fees paid. So anyway, I'm taking a break on those things. Even those are very important, because this Steven Crowder video, based on my experiences, I see a lot of things in this video that a lot of people don't see. And I wouldn't have seen it probably before I had the experiences that I had, but I just wanted to, make a video showing some of those things that I see. And the first thing I'll say before playing any part of the clip is that this is, I think, 3 minutes out of what I hear. I don't know everything about the relationship and all the details. The only thing I've heard about how long their relationship is that it was 9 years. I'll assume that it was 9 years. So this is 3 minutes out of 9 years. If you know anything about human communication, any word can mean a variety of things. And we'll talk about that during the course of the video. But these words, you cannot understand them without having a substantial knowledge of years of their relationship. They do have English meanings, but in English and probably every language, the meanings of words are so ambiguous depending on the context. And then people misuse words, and then people don't use the right words, and there's all kinds of ambiguities, and you just cannot watch. There's some clips that you can watch, like me getting attacked by my ex, and just trying to constantly get out of the room. It's pretty clear what's happening. I mean, one party's abusing the other. Okay, it's physical abuse. I mean, what are you going to say when one person's hitting the other person? But this video, there's a conversation. That's all that happens. There's some walking, I don't know. There's pretty much, it's uninterpretable, essentially, without extra information. But a lot of people have jumped to conclusions about what it is and what it means and what it signifies and all this stuff. And I'm just going to present some ideas on what it also could be. And I don't know which one it is, but I have some suspicions based on what is there and what is not there and how it's been presented and all kinds of other things. Anyway, let's get into the video. He says that I drew a boundary. He's referring, I think, to the fact that she wants to use their car. I guess it's their single car. I'm not sure, but she wants to use it. He says no. Later on, he explains that he wants to use it later, and I think that her refusing to tell him when she's going to be back with it, according to him, means that he's not going to be able to use it later, potentially. So there's some conflict about who gets to use the car, and she wants to use it now, and he doesn't want her to use it now, although it's not clear. Maybe he just is kind of like he doesn't care, perhaps, whether she uses it now, if A, she tells him when she's going to be back, or B, she just does this thing with the dog. I don't know if I think it's walking the dog and feeding the dog medicine. I think it might be both. So anyway, it starts off with some conflict about the car. He accuses her of being abusive and cruel. I'm not sure what he's referring to. it doesn't seem like going out with the car is abusive, but this is in the middle of the conversation. I don't know what exactly they're talking about. He might be saying she's controlling. He might be referring to something else. The cruelty thing, I'm not sure what that refers to yet. We'll see as it develops if we can tell. Okay, then they have some conversation where he says, you're not doing wifely things. If you're not going to do wifely things, then I'll go get the groceries. He might be saying, if you're not going to go get the groceries, I'll get the groceries. She says, there's no groceries, meaning I think that there's no groceries that we need. He says, no, we do need this stuff, meat, wood pellets, whatever he says. And later on, I think she offers to get him that stuff. But anyway, so the wifely things, I'm not sure if that refers to getting the groceries. It might include that among other things. I think it also refers to doing the thing with the dog. We'll get more into that later. I think he then says that he says, I think sarcastically, he says, I know it's an unreasonable request. I think he's referring to getting the groceries that he wants. And I think he's saying, I know I'm being totally unreasonable asking you to pick up some groceries. I think that's how he's saying it. And then he says, well, since essentially the wife thinks it's unreasonable, he'll do it himself. So I guess that might be him saying, like, since you're refusing to pick up the groceries, let me have the car to go do it because I need the groceries or whatever. Yeah, at about second 24, there's something that's taken out. I think she says, and I think it's taken out to distort the picture of what's happening. There's a little skip. She says, I think something, I can only imagine what she says, but I think she says something like, you're not respecting me, or you're not respecting women, or something like that. And then he says, well, you're not respecting men. How do you respect men? Basically, they're both saying, you're not respecting me. She says, you're not respecting me. He says, you're not respecting me. I assume that almost nobody even caught. I thought I saw a skip, and it also didn't make sense for him to just say out of the blue, you're not respecting men. And so I was like, wait a second, was something skipped here? And I watched it a couple times. I couldn't tell, but then I saw that something was definitely skipped. So not only is this 3 minutes out of the whole relationship, it's 3 minutes where the wife is taking out certain things to potentially distort the conversation. It's not clear if that's what's happening. Perhaps it's to move things along, but I don't know. That it didn't seem like very much was taken out. It seemed like just a selective comment was taken out. So anyway, it's not a one-sided thing where he just randomly brings up, you got to respect men. It doesn't sound like, it sounds like she said, you got to respect women or something like that. So I can't really tell what exactly happens next, but I think what happens is that Steven says something like, she says something, but I can't quite hear. She's keeping her voice low, perhaps because she knows she's going to use this video in the future, and maybe she just wants it to be him saying stuff, and I don't know, to make it give the impression that he's like the only one talking. But anyway, he says, I think he says something like, do you see other relationships where the mother of the child just like doesn't come back or doesn't tell the husband when she's coming back or something like that? I think that's what's happening now. Now I'll bring up one aspect of my relationship which makes me see a little bit of what's going on here potentially. When I said that she might be keeping her voice low to get him to cast it as him doing the talking, this is something that happened again and again in my relationship. Not this exact thing, but it was more like this. In my relationship, my partner would constantly cut me off. I could not get in a sentence without her cutting me off in many occasions. And she would repeatedly agree to, work on her communication skills and all this stuff. And she would completely disregard those things and keep cutting me off. And sometimes she would accuse me of cutting her off. At one point, she said, Troy, 90 or 95% of the, I think it was 90% of the time, 95% of the time, you either cut me off or you're speaking 95% of the time in the conversation or something like that. It was totally absurd. And then there's emails between me and her where she has finally admitted years later, because we've done actual experiments with actual evidence and records and stuff, and it's clear that she's totally incapable of letting me speak, and I always let her speak. And so years later, she's emailing me like, okay, I admit I do cut you off. I'm being sincere. I'm like, thank you. It took you 4 years to admit that. Actually, after she had already gotten therapy for her delusions and she seemed to progress and she seemed to understand it, but then she did all of them again. Now, it could be the reoccurrence of the delusions, but I'm pretty sure it was just manipulative gaslighting stuff. So anyway, there's possibly aspects of that going on here. That didn't happen here, but I can't hear what she's saying. It might be because she's trying to be like extra soft so that it seems like he's being loud and aggressive when he's seemingly just talking normally, like not much louder than I'm talking now. So then she walks out. There's no agreement been reached about the car, which is apparently probably both of theirs. They're married, so I don't know what that means about the car legal ownership or whatever. But anyway, so she walks out like she's just going to unilaterally decide, like, well, I'm taking the car. And people might be like, oh, well, she has the right to decide what's going on with her body. Well, it's not her body. She doesn't say I'm walking out of the house. She says I'm taking the car. So there was a conflict about the car. It hasn't been resolved, and she's just saying it's my way, right? So then she just walks out. Now, if the gender roles were reversed here and there was a conflict about the car and the guy and the woman was like, no, I need the car. I need you to pick up things. She hasn't agreed to pick up anything at this point. I need certain things for the home. I need certain food items. And I also need the car later, possibly. But if the guy said, basically, like, fuck that, I'm taking it, that would be labeled as abusive, right? I mean, like depriving somebody of their car and possibly food or whatever. I don't know. It's not like, I wouldn't necessarily label it abusive, but I'm saying that many people would. I don't know if I agree with those people. It depends on the context, but it depends on how much other food there is in the house or whether the person can get an Uber or something. It depends on a lot of things. But just pointing out there that she's just unilaterally taking over decision-making power in the marriage that's, I don't know, presumably about working things out. Okay. So she says, I am taking the car. He says, you're not. Now, this part is interesting. She says, well, I'll ask someone to pick me up. Seems on the surface, could seem like a totally reasonable request. Now, because it could be seen as an offer, like, oh, yeah, you want to keep the car? I'll just ask somebody to pick me up. I'll just go about my daily stuff. And I remember in my relationship, at some point, my ex told me, during some conflict or whatever, well, I'm going to call my mom or whatever. Now, her mom was a drug addict, criminal, who had already threatened my life, and my ex had told me that I'm going to get my family members to kill you. Okay, during one of her delusional episodes where she escalates and whatever, which is interesting because he says, is that a threat?
Then I will ask them.
Yeah, he says, what is that, a threat? She says it's not a threat, but we have no idea whether that's a threat. Who are her parents? Who are her friends? What's happening? Have those people threatened him before? Has she threatened him with those people's actions? Violently, perhaps? It's not clear. Or maybe that's not what he's talking about. Maybe the threat is, well, I'm going to call people to pick me up and I'm going to leave you. And is that a threat? Borderline. She's 8 months pregnant. See, in our legal system currently, like with my own case, you can be non-abusive and you can be deemed non-abusive. Like somebody tries their hardest to paint you as abusive and then you win, showing that you're not. And then you still lose your kid. Her threatening to leave like that, given the legal context of corrupt family courts and corrupt family court lawyers, that could be abusive. Child abduction, child deprivation. If that was her threat. I'm not sure if that was her threat. We don't know. She says it wasn't her threat, but we have no idea how many times she's threatened to leave in the past and to take the kid and to do who knows what. Another thing is that I saw him say on a clip recently, I saw a 30-second clip or something. He said that this video was released against court orders that say that everything's going to be private, and that since it was released against court orders, he's going to put the actual context out there. He claims that context includes medical, therapeutic records, mental health stuff. She might have drastic mental health problems. Who knows? And she might, my ex certainly did, doing some of these same behaviors, but like much worse also than what this lady did. Like, I don't necessarily think this lady's done anything wrong yet. It's just possible that she has. So anyway, given the context of the mental health stuff, that's just another layer. Like, she could have done very threatening things in the past, physically threatening, child abduction threatening, different things like that. Okay, so he says get an Uber. So that's totally possible to do. First, get an Uber. In fact, it might be more safe. I'm not sure. It might be more safe for a pregnant woman to get an Uber rather than drive. I don't know. But of course, there's some aspect of unsafety because you're getting in a stranger's car. But then again, I don't know. There might be some unsafety about driving with a pregnant woman. I'm not sure. But by the way, she's clearly able to walk. She's clearly able to drive. She's clearly able to do a lot of things. So this whole aspect of like, oh, she's pregnant, he's asking her to walk the dog or whatever. Okay, so what? Pregnant people can do things. Now, I know people like my ex, they claim she couldn't do anything, and then she could do all kinds of other things, but not these things or whatever. This is another thing. This is another one of the signs I'm seeing. It's like, she didn't claim in this video that she can't do these things, by the way. This is just people online claiming that she can't do X, Y, and Z, even though she's pregnant and doing the same things in different ways. And, so she didn't claim that she can't do these things. Well, I guess she actually did claim, I think, that she can't do the dog medicine thing because it might be toxic to her and whatever. He's like, what are you talking about? Put on gloves. Don't drink it. Like, he doesn't say those. Well, he says put on gloves. He doesn't say don't drink it because that's too obvious to say. So it seems like she is kind of weaponizing this pregnancy thing. She's like, oh, I couldn't possibly, give a dog medicine or whatever. Now, he could also give it. If it's not a big deal, he could give it to the dog also. But you don't know the context. Maybe she's agreed to do it. Maybe he's working all the time. He's famous, so he probably is. And maybe she's agreed to do certain things to support the health and safety of the family, including the dog. And maybe she's not giving the dog medicine as she perhaps agreed to do, endangering the dog's life, perhaps. So like he might. So him asking her to do the dog thing, that could be like critical. That could be a huge issue. You could be talking about the life or death of the dog, or at least the pain and suffering of the dog. And she's like, well, I'm going out, fuck that. If there's no agreement on who's going to do the dog thing, okay, but we don't know. We don't have no idea. And why would he, and he probably wouldn't be so insistent that she does it if there wasn't any agreement. He would just do it. Or, who knows? Or maybe he's trying to make the agreement like, hey, look, I'm doing a lot of shit all the time. Can you take care of this dog thing? I don't know. When he suggests that she get the Uber, she doesn't say I can't. She seems to not want to do that. He says, oh, you're feeling some constraints, like implying that she's been constraining him or something like that. And that she is being hypocritical, placing constraints on him in this video, before this video, I don't know. And anyway, that's what happened next. Now, I don't know when this video is from. I don't think it's from like the exact end of their breakup. It could be the quarantine thing he's talking about. He says, I can't go to the gym, I can't go with my friends, I can't stay home. I don't know why he says he can't stay home. He seems like he's home. but we have no idea what he's talking about. He might be quickly saying things and not explaining fully. He might be saying that she, who knows? I'm just going to give you some random situation. She says, I don't want you here from X hour to X hour because I need to sleep or do whatever, right? And so he says, I can't even be home. Where are you? Like, I can't do anything. You're taking the car. You don't want me to be home. I don't know what's happening, but these are the potential things that could be happening. So far in this video, we've seen nothing that's clearly abusive. We've seen possibly nothing abusive at all. And on his part, and we've possibly seen her being controlling and abusive, possibly to him. It's just not clear. So then he says, so you're just going to take the car? I think she says something like, I'm not going to take the Uber, I'm going to take the car. And then he says, so you're just going to take the car and leave me here? Think about how boxed in you're making me. So he's saying, I'm not able to do stuff. Now, I don't know why he can't get an Uber. I don't know. Maybe he's gaslighting her here. It's not clear. I mean, but if he is denying this Uber thing, well, she is also. So I don't know what's happening here. But the other thing is he's famous, so I'm not sure. Maybe it's not safe for him to get an Uber. Maybe a lot of people don't like him, because he has opinions that differ from them, and sometimes people physically assault him and stuff. So maybe he's not comfortable doing the Uber. Maybe that's what it is. I don't know. Now, by the way, a lot of people have suggested like, oh, they could just get another car. Like, yeah, that's a possibility. Spend another, $30,000 or whatever on a car. That sounds like, the very American solution. Just buy more shit. you could also just talk through things and just communicate, and like you could save $30,000. So I don't know, but maybe they should get another car. I have no idea, but they have one car. They've presumably been together for years and years and years. Presumably it hasn't been a problem. Do you think she couldn't have said at some point in the relationship, maybe before having a kid with him, hey, do you think we could get another car? And then if he says yes, then they get another car. Or if he says no, then maybe they talk about it and they do get another car eventually. Or maybe he says no and there's an impasse and she says, you know what, another car is really important to me. If we can't get another car, I don't want to be in this relationship or whatever. And then she can leave or whatever. So obviously she can leave. She already left. I've not seen any allegation that she was physically abused ever. I've not seen any allegation that she felt that she couldn't leave the relationship. She did leave the relationship. She was with him for 9 years. He's a public figure who, more than almost any other public figure, he lives most of his life scrutinized minute by minute. He's got his talk show. He goes out in the street talking to people all the time, where he gets physically assaulted sometimes, if my memory is correct. So anyway, let's keep watching. Okay, so then she offers to get him his stuff, but then she couples that with, I'll be back when I'm back. And he says, no, that doesn't work either. And you might think, oh, he's being a controlling asshole saying that she just offered to get him his stuff. He says, no. Well, she offered to get him his stuff so that he can eat, and then she won't tell him when she'll be back. She says, I'll be back whenever. Well, that's not going to help me eat lunch, right? So, it doesn't. So it seems like a little bit of a disingenuous offer. I don't know. She might mean by that, I'll be back, in an hour, 30 minutes, whatever. I don't know. I'm not sure the exact time. She probably doesn't, based on his reaction and her lack of clarification that that's what she meant. She probably meant, I'll just be back whenever, fuck you. Something like that. Again, taking the car, which might be necessary for him or might not, I don't know. And saying, even though he's saying, I need this food or whatever, or I want this food, and then she says, no, and then her offer to compromise is doesn't solve the problem at all, potentially. So now he says, do you understand the difference between my life being set by the second, scheduled consistently, I think he means, he's really busy and things have to happen on a certain time frame for him to run his business or whatever, that's supporting their whole life, presumably. And he says, do you understand the difference between that and you saying, I'll just be back whenever? Basically what he seems to be saying is, do you understand that I'll be back whenever doesn't work with my life? I only have this time to cook the food. I have this time to eat the food. I don't even know if I'm going to make that. Then, I'm going to be, hungry, later on. And who knows what's going on later on. He might have some interview to do. He might mess up something because he's hungry. People might use that to try to expose him. Who knows? So anyway, that's all he said there. And nothing abusive about that, obviously. She now starts crying, I think possibly because she knows she's going to try to use this video in the future in some kind of false abuse allegations or true abuse allegations. Like I said, it's impossible to tell from just this video if anybody's being abusive, and who it is, if anybody is being abusive. But so she starts crying, or fake crying, I don't know. And probably because she doesn't want to walk out, and possibly because she doesn't want to look out and be like she's in control, but also she has nothing to say because he's just asking at this point for her to get an Uber, or her to tell him when she's going to be back, or just tell him that she's going to be back with the food at a specific time that she probably knows when he needs it. So anyway, she starts crying. So then he says the only way out of this is discipline and respect. So what is he referring to, discipline? Well, it becomes, it could be physical discipline, obviously, but that doesn't seem to be what he's referring to, especially because later on he says, you don't have discipline. It seems like he's talking about self-discipline. It seems like he's really talking about self-sacrifice, compromise, not even really self-sacrifice, because sacrifice kind of implies something significant, but just or putting your husband or wife's convenience on an equal level as your own convenience or something like that. I don't know, just not disregarding your partner, basically, it seems like he's talking about. And then he says respect, which is pretty much the same thing. So they both agree that they're in an impasse. Okay, I guess, if it's significant and nobody wants to give up who gets the car right now or whatever, then I guess you just keep talking, unless there's some life-threatening issue that needs to be solved and somebody needs to just take unilateral action. You can just keep talking if you're in an impasse. You can call somebody else. You can do a bunch of things. Let's see what happens. So she seems to pick up the dog leash. So she said they're at an impasse, but then I think she picks up the dog leash, implying that they're actually not in an impasse. She's about to walk the dog, which was like his only request, essentially. So yeah, when she picks up the dog leash, he says, there you go. Like, just walk the dog and everything's fine. Something like that. And she doesn't say I can't. She doesn't say it's going to hurt me. She doesn't say it's going to hurt the baby. She doesn't say anything. I mean, it's walking a dog. She was about to walk. Now she's going to walk a dog. Seems like the same thing. Okay, now she throws down the leash. Now she's not going to walk the dog. And then she says, no, we are at an impasse. Okay, now she says, I love you, but your abuse is sick. So she loves her abuser. That's what she's claiming. She's not unclear. She says your abuse is sick. She says she doesn't say you're possibly being abusive. You've possibly been abusive in the past, whatever. She says your abuse sickens me, but I love you. Okay, there's something off about that. Now, you could say, it's potentially possible that somebody could be brainwashed and love their sickening abuser. But that doesn't seem to be her. She's not seeming to be controlled. She refuses to walk the dog. Then she will walk the dog. Now she throws it down. She doesn't seem like she's being controlled at all. And yet she's telling her abuser, her sickening abuser, I love you. This doesn't add up. Okay, this is similar to like what I experienced in my relationship. Constantly, I love you. Thank you for helping me. I know you're not abusive. All in writing. Let's have more kids. We got to have more kids soon. Blah 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 blah. And then, I know you're not a monster. We just did one or two things. Whatever. And then the whole trial is, you're a monster. This is an abusive monster. He's totally out of control. Blah 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 blah. It just doesn't make any fucking sense. Okay, that doesn't make any sense. All right. Now you could say there's probably a lot of women out there. Probably two categories of women. Well, I've been in that experience. I was abused and I still love my abuser. And the other women will also say the same thing. I've been in that experience. I love my abuser. Now, some of those women are the problem. And some of those women potentially were abused. Like, if you can't leave, then, like I experienced this. So, in my experience, I can't leave, essentially, because the abduction of the child and various other factors, okay? And then, when I stay, it's hellish unless I'm constantly praising, in a way, or reaffirming or reassuring my abuser. So it is possible to be in a relationship and say you love your abuser, not love your abuser, or actually love your abuser, or actually think you do. All this is possible stuff. But it doesn't seem like it actually applies here. This is a possible narrative that every corrupt and biased and wanting to get a big payday lawyer will tell their client to say, family law attorney, oh yeah, just tell him you couldn't leave. Because everybody knows the story now. Oh yeah, sometimes you can't leave and you have to do what you can or whatever. Okay, not everybody's in that story where you can't leave. Okay, so it doesn't seem like she is. So that's one thing, which I think is pretty clear. There's multiple ways to interpret it, but I think it's pretty clear what's going on here. She's saying, I love my sickening abuser. Now he says, watch it. Now that could be interpreted as like, oh my God, he's telling her, stop talking to her, I'll fuck you up, physically. And then she adds, it's not on camera at all, but I guess there's some allegation that he said that on some off-camera time. So anyway, but here's another totally valid interpretation of that. I've been through the experience, basically. So my abusive ex, as she abuses and abuses me, starts labeling me abusive. And even though I've never abused her, even though she says later that you're not abusive, even though she asked me for more kids, whatever. And I said to her, well, many things, but one of the things was, you have to get therapy for your delusions, and then she did, and then she's like, okay, I'm realizing that I am delusional or something like that. But anyway, one thing I said to her is, you have to stop writing this stuff. This is after she had me falsely arrested, and then the charges were dropped because the body cam showed I didn't do anything at all. This was not even an incident which was allegedly abusive on my part. It was just some thing that involved my child and whatever. But anyway, long story. You'll see more about it later. But I said, after I got falsely arrested, thrown in jail during COVID, potentially lethal situation, thrown into the floor by police who I told, just if you really insist on me giving my daughter to this lady who's psychologically unstable and wants to take my kid to an undisclosed location in the middle of the night, just go ahead and arrest me. No, they didn't just arrest me. They just threw my face onto the floor after harassing me for a while. So, and then they made up false allegations against me, and then those were proven wrong by their body cam. Okay, so the watch it might be him saying, watch it, you're going there again, falsely accusing me of abuse. We've discussed this before. You have mental health issues. Stop going there. You've already promised to stop going there. You're going there again. Watch it. You're crossing your own line and a line that we've agreed that you're not going to cross. Okay? Because it's totally possible that he has done nothing abusive in this entire conversation. It's totally possible that he's being manipulated and controlled in this conversation, possibly for the purpose of using this video at a later date, which she then did. And she starts saying that your abuse is sick. So it's two things. Like, your abuse is sick. It seems to be refuted by the video. It seems like nothing abuse is going on, although it could be. And then she says, I love you. Combined with that, that's also very strange. All right, anyway. Okay, so then he says, fucking watch it, adding a swear word. I don't know what that means. Probably nothing. But somebody could interpret that as escalating. Oh my God, he's threatening violence or something like that. I don't know. I have not seen any allegations of physical violence, so that would be, if this is years and years and years into their relationship and marriage, that seems like a really ridiculous interpretation, but maybe, I don't know. So then she just starts reiterating her previous offer, which doesn't help at all because they were already at an impasse. This was already the offer. This is totally useless. She just says, I'm going to go and get you your stuff. She says, I need some space. I don't know why she needs space. Why? Like, she could just walk the dog or not walk the dog. I'm not sure why the space is needed. But she might have mental health issues, or her mental health issue might be some kind of personality disorder in which she weaponizes the need for space and stuff like that. So I don't know, but it doesn't seem like a person who you've been married to for years asking you to get an Uber so that they can have access to the car, or for you to just pick their stuff up and tell them when you're going to be back. I'm not sure why that creates the need for space. I don't know. She's saying, I love you very much. I love you very much. Okay. Possibly just for the camera. I don't know. He says, honestly, I don't love you. You're not fucking doing anything loving for me. That's what he says next. Let's see. He doesn't swear. He says, I've never received love from you. That's a little weird. By the way, in my relationship, we had a kid very quickly. And the only reason I stayed with this abusive person is because of the kid. I don't think they have any kids at this point. And I think they've been in it for many years. So he presumably decided to have a kid with her at some point and decided to marry her. Seems like at some point she did something loving for him. Okay? I don't think he would have made those decisions if she'd never been loving. So, two things. He's lying here, I think. You've never been loving. He might mean, or he might just mean like recently you haven't been loving or whatever. Okay? Also, just the whole idea that, I don't know, if you're with someone for years, I'm not sure. Perhaps what happened is they got married early. Maybe he views marriage as like very sacred and like doesn't even contemplate being able to get a divorce. And so maybe he feels stuck in a marriage that where his wife is not loving. I don't know. It seems a little suspect here on his part. Also seems suspect on her part to just keep saying I love you and stuff when, it's like, okay, those are words, but like, I'm asking you, can you just give the dog some medicine or just walk the dog? Like, what does love mean if I can't request you to walk a dog that you possibly already agreed to walk? I don't know if that was the agreement. And, the dog thing is a potentially a big thing. Like, it seems like they have a big house. The dog's probably not like kept in like, I don't know. But, dogs need to walk. Like, that's part of their life. It's like somebody, it's like not allowing one of your family members to leave a bedroom. Like, no, that's like, you have to have a quality of life. The dog's a creature. Like, somebody's got to make sure the dog gets on a walk. Probably. I don't know. Yeah. Then she says, I love you more than life itself. That's weird. It's certainly weird to bring up right here. I don't know. You could make a case. Oh, well, she's just being loving. What do you want? What do you want? She's very dedicated to him or whatever. He says, okay, you love me more than life itself. Just go fucking put some gloves on. He says, she probably doesn't need any gloves, but she thinks the medicine's toxic or something. I don't know. And so he says, okay, just put some gloves on. You won't get any medicine on you. Just give the dog the medicine. If you love me more than life itself, certainly you love me more than the next 5 minutes of your life in which you want to be doing something non-critical, and I'm asking you to take care of the health of our dog. He says that's not fair, and that's disingenuous that you are saying that. It's a lie, basically. He's saying, put your money where your mouth is. Put your actions where your words are. He says at that point, you know what? You got to become a better person. You got to become a worthy wife, or a wife worthy, or something like that. Basically, he's just saying you got to hold up your end of this deal. We're supposed to be both doing things for each other and whatever. And he's saying basically you're not doing anything for me or something. I don't know. You're not meeting your obligations or something like that. This is how a conservative Christian would. This is the language they would use to just say you're not doing enough. She says something, I think, about, oh, you're saying I'm not your wife? And he's like, no, I'm saying you're not worthy wife. You're not doing XYZ as a wife. You're not treating me how a wife should treat a husband, in his view. I mean, and I think, I think everybody would agree that a wife should treat her husband with respect, love, some degree of self-sacrifice, and vice versa. A husband should do that for the wife, obviously, too. Okay, she says, I'm not going to engage anymore, which nobody was forcing her to engage. She already said she was in an impasse, and then she didn't leave, and she actually picked up the dog leash. So now she's like, oh, I'm not going to engage anymore. Like, nobody would, okay. That was, I'm just thinking of the Rick and Morty clip where Rick and Morty leave the dad, Jerry or whatever, at the Jerry playground. And then Jerry says, I'm leaving. And the staff was like, that was always allowed. So nobody forced her to engage. It didn't look like. Could have been forced. I don't know. But it didn't seem like there was anything in that video that seemed like there was being any forced use. She then continues to engage after saying she's not going to engage. And she says, I love you and I'm committed to you. And I presume that he's going to say next, if you're committed to me, just take 5 minutes to walk the dog and give him some medicine. So, I don't know. Dog walk could take 10 minutes, 20 minutes. I don't know. I'm just saying 5 minutes just to show that it's not the end of, it's not like a huge burden. I wouldn't think. She never claims it is. Yeah. So he says, "Are you just like I expected?" She's just using these like vague words like "I love you" and stuff. This is gaslighting. Potentially. Who knows? Maybe it's not. But I love you so much. I love you more than life itself. Can you do this one thing for me? No, I'm not going to do that. Come on. It just continues. Like she said, he says, "You said I love you. You just put some gloves on." He follows her into the house. He doesn't go into the house. He just seems to be at the door. I'm trying to see if he held on to her. I don't know if he touched her. It really doesn't matter. If he did touch her, okay, he grabbed the arm of his wife, gently or something. I don't know. Also, if she's still right at the doorway, because he's right at the doorway, then obviously it seems like she wasn't leaving. It seems like she was still there. So even if he touched her, she was presumably choosing to be right there. I don't know. Now, could be that he's physically abused her in the past and she didn't feel safe to go further out of the house. But I've not seen any allegations like that, so I'm assuming that that's not true. Okay, now there's the clip that says, by his own admission, he screams, "I will fuck you up." I have not seen that admission. Please send me that admission if you have evidence that he's admitted that. I've watched several videos. I've never seen any clip of him saying that. I'm not saying he didn't say it. I have no idea. And I've never seen evidence of the admission. That would be the thing to lead with on any video about this. His video or statement or whatever, put the evidence there that he said that he admitted this. There's no evidence of this. I don't know if he said it or not. The fact that there's no evidence suggests to me that there was no admission, but totally possible that there was an admission, and people, and just like everybody that on every video I've seen so far, which is only like 2 or 3, leaves it out. So that's the video. Gone through it point by point. You can look at it and disregard all the details and all the possibilities and believe whatever you want, or you can be more honest and rational and logical and empathic, or whatever you want to call it, and look at things from different perspectives and acknowledge your own ignorance about the situation. But most people, I think, will just project whatever their own experience or narrative about their experience, even if it wasn't their experience, whatever their narrative about their personal experience, their experience with their parents fighting or whatever, onto this. We have no idea what's happening here. And then I've seen a bunch of videos coming out about, oh, he did this at work, he was messing around with his childhood best friend, some dick joke or something, putting his balls on, you know, I don't know, outside of his pants or on inside of his pants on somebody or something. And you know, I have no idea. What I haven't seen is any substantiated allegation where somebody says I was abused or assaulted or harassed or anything like that. I don't know. I haven't seen everything. I'm not studying this guy. I got to get back to my own stuff so that I can protect my daughter and myself from ongoing abuse. But anyway, just wanted to demonstrate what it might look like to consider another perspective, and so that, you know, people can understand that 3 minutes of a video of 9 years of a relationship, you can't really say anything about that video.